Good evening and welcome to the June 23rd, 2021 Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I would like to introduce the staff and commission members present. Myself, Commissioner Jennifer Baskin, Commissioner Peter Diepenbrock, Commissioner David Thomas, Commissioner Aurora Brosnan, Commissioner Peter Joshua, Commissioner Dana Payne, along with staff present, Library and Community Services Director Sean Reinhart, Assistant Library Services Director Nick Segeza, and Recreation Supervisor Todd Zio. Well, this time I would love to welcome our new commission members. And just since we can't be, we're only together virtually, I'd introduce you, and if you don't mind just sharing maybe a couple things about yourself, how long you've lived here, why you were interested in joining the commission, maybe a fun fact about yourself. I leave it to you to keep it brief, but as interesting as you want to make it. So in no particular order, just how we have here written down, Aurora Brosnan. Welcome.
Thank you. Am I unmuted now? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the introduction, Jen. I have lived in Menlo Park for just under a year, although I've lived in the Bay Area for about 40, with a 12-year stint or so in Australia, which I just returned from. And I've got family here, so I came to look after them. This is my first venture back into civic duty, officially since high school. So it's good to be back and participating in the world. I did do some consulting for a government agency for 2 years, running the water and power and wastewater infrastructure in remote Indigenous towns in Australia. So I have had a bit of government experience in that bit of the world. And that's about it.
Welcome. We're very excited for you to join us. And I was happy actually to have met you personally at this past weekend at Carly Clark Park. Up next is Peter Joshua. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much. I live in the Willows, and we've lived here for about 13 years and really enjoy the neighborhood. And it's just wonderful to be in a situation where we can contribute more actively to the community. I've got some experience, and it's more on the organization of youth sports. And that's why my interest in Parks and Recreation. One of the things that I think is really important is to have that space for our children, not only to play competitively, but also just to run around. And just being on the peninsula, we all know how difficult it is to find open space and just land. And so that's why I'm very interested in Parks and Recreation and the contributions I can make to it.
Fantastic. Any sport in particular?
Yes, it's soccer. I work with the academy on the peninsula, and I've also worked with the Redwood City Sports Club.
Fantastic, thank you. We always love having people with some personal expertise in any of the sports or recreational services that we're participating. I know Peter has expertise in pickleball and some disc golf here, and now we have soccer, and I'm sure commissioners have other talents we just haven't shared yet. And David Thomas, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, I'm David. I'm a fifth-year PhD student at Stanford. And this year, during COVID, I relocated to Menlo Park. And I think something that's really unique about Menlo Park are the great parks. And so I'm really excited to be here and to contribute.
What's your subject of PhD?
Computational and mathematical engineering.
Light stuff.
Almost done.
Fantastic, thank you, and welcome, commissioners. We're very excited to have some new faces and be working together over the course of the next few years. Moving on to public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Nick, at this time, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair Baskin. If anyone would like to make a public comment on an item not on the agenda tonight, please use that raise hand feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And I do not see any public comment at this time, but I do see that Commissioner Diepenbrock has his hand raised.
I was just going to suggest, Jennifer, maybe the three of us also introduce ourselves so the new people can know a little bit about ourselves. I don't know if that's okay or what. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. Are we able to do that now under the public comment section? Would that be appropriate?
John, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Sean.
I can't hear you.
Is it a thumbs up we should do it?
They were words of wisdom, I'm sure. Yes, I think he said it's okay. So I'm a lip reader here for Sean. So,
Peter, would you like to start?
Sure, I'll start. Welcome, David, Aurora, and Peter. So this is just my second year on the commission. I've lived in Menlo Park now for 17 years. But I did go to Menlo College, so I've been familiar with the area for most of my life. And yeah, I'm a physical education teacher at Palo Alto High School in my 25th year, and I have a 15-year-old son at Menlo Atherton High School. So, yeah.
And Dana, would you also like to share?
Sure. So yeah, welcome to the new commissioners. It's great to have you guys. I have a 1-year-old, well, 10 months. So sometimes he makes an appearance or some noise here, but yeah, I've been on the commission for, I think, 3 years now. I've been in Menlo Park for just about 6. I live over in Bellhaven near Facebook, so that side of town. And both my husband and I are at Stanford. Actually, my husband's a postdoc there, but in the bioengineering group. So maybe you cross paths, David, I don't know. But I work at the hospital and just love being outdoors, big backpacker, all that good stuff. So it's been an interesting time here on the Parks and Rec Commission. It's a good place to be. So yeah, welcome everybody.
What do you do at the hospital, Dana?
I'm a PA in the cardiology department.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Jennifer Baskin, I'm the longest tenured Parks and Recreation Commissioner, starting my 6th year of service, so second term. Terms are 4 years. I am originally from New Jersey and was brought out to Menlo Park by my husband, who was born and raised here, or rather not born here, but raised here. 3 young children, so that's what started my interest and desire to serve on the commission, who attend Oakville School and a local preschool. And by background, I'm an ex-Wall Streeter that now works in fintech. So I think I'm a California girl now for the most part. Welcome, and it's a fun place to work. And now that things have really opened up, even since our last meeting, the governor has established some new guidelines for us. I think it's going to be a very fruitful next year of work. So this should be great.
Speaking to that, Jennifer, is there any idea when we're going to be meeting in person? Is there any idea on that?
I will likely leave that to Sean's update.
Hopefully Hopefully you can hear me now.
Yeah,
Yes.
Under department updates, we can give you a kind of an update on all of that if you don't mind waiting until that portion
Sure.
of the agenda.
sure.
Great. So moving on to regular business, we have the Parks and Recreation Commission minutes for the meeting of May 26th, 21st. So we will need to, I'll be looking for a motion to approve these and a second to that. Did anyone have any edits to this? It was an attachment we could have read beforehand.
No edits. I can motion to approve.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great, and we'll take a vote. I believe Nick will just require a show of hands for the vote.
Sure. Well, actually, I need to call just in
Call
case
us.
there's somebody dialing in. I do a little roll call. So Commissioners Payne and Diepenbrock by motioning and seconding, we assume they approve. Commissioner Thomas, how do you vote? Thank you. Commissioner Brosnan, how do you vote? She votes aye. Thank you. Commissioner Joshua, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. And Chair Baskin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Great. The motion passes unanimously.
Moving on. So at this time, we're looking to elect a new Parks and Recreation chair and vice chair. Just for some background for those of us for those who just joined. So I served as a chair for the past year. We did have a vice chair, Sarah Staley Shank, who her term ended in May. So the reason she rolled off and did not reapply for another term. So she had served as our vice chair. So generally we do have a chair and a vice chair. Chair will chair the meetings, and if the chair cannot be present for the meetings, generally the vice chair then does preside over them for a one-year term. Usually we nominate, oftentimes a vice chair is nominated after they have served and had some experience there. But again, we're in an unusual situation where we've had some commissioners, the commissioner had rolled off their term of service beforehand. So at this time, I'd just love to open up the floor to see if any commissioners would like to express personal interest in serving as chair, and before going into sort of a formal nominating portion. Feel free to raise your hand and not be shy.
If I can add some encouraging words, the chair meets with the staff a week or so prior to the meeting and helps set the agenda for the commission. There will on occasion be ceremonial duties. There's not that many, and we don't have an official chair of the commission sash for you to wear, so you'd have to struggle on without that. The chair also gives updates to the city council on occasion, usually about the commission's work plan and their progress towards their work plan goals, but also about any other issues that might be of interest to the council. So it involves a little bit of extra work, but not a ton of extra work. You're not writing the reports and things like that. That sort of research and report writing stuff is usually done by staff.
And also to add some words of encouragement, I am, as the former chair, also continuing my term of service, so I'm available for any sort of training or coaching that you desire before heading into the role. So just to reiterate, Nick, it's one additional sort of meeting you set aside per month to set the agenda, and it's really facilitating the momentum of the meeting, making sure things are moving, people are able to have their say, and keeping, at times when things can get exciting, keeping decorum as well. But outside of that, there's not much additional duty that you wouldn't otherwise do as a commissioner.
Are you eligible to be the commissioner again?
Am I eligible to be chair again?
Yeah.
Yes.
And can you say whether you want to do that or not? Or
I was hoping to give someone else an opportunity to say if they wanted to first.
I see.
If no one else is putting their hand up, and Jen, I would give it to you if you are still interested in continuing that, but I have the capacity at the moment. I've taken time off of work to look after family, so it's something I'll be happy to do. But if you, Jen, are very keen to maintain that role, that's fine.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say, and I would be very excited to help if you wanted to meet, meet with staff or learn anything. Given that this is your first sort of official meeting with us, but you possibly maybe have seen meetings before in other ways to feel comfortable doing it. But
it's been a while. I was the president of my high school, so I ran Robert's Rules of Order meetings.
That's more experience than I had, other than serving on the commission. So very much appreciate your interest. I would be interested in serving a vice chair role, but I'm happy to give someone else an opportunity to lead. So anyone else have any other comments or desires?
I would say we have a chair and a vice chair.
Well, can we move on, I suppose, to the formal nomination? I would be happy to call. Would anyone like to formally nominate Aurora Brosnan as chair?
I will.
Thank you, Peter. And could I have a second?
I'll second it.
Great, let me go ahead and call the roll on that one. Since Commissioner Joshua and Diepenbrock made the motion and seconded, I'll start with Commissioner Thomas. How do you vote?
Yes.
And Commissioner Brosnan, how do you vote?
Can I vote for myself?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And yes. Commissioner Payne, how do you vote?
In favor.
And Commissioner Chair Baskin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Great, that motion passes unanimously. The chair is not going to begin their duties until the following meeting for our July meeting. Normally, we have elections in April, and the chair, is that right? Or May, and the chair starts in June. This year they were later. So you're off the hook for this meeting, Aurora. It's next month that we'll test it.
This will be your perfect training. And now I'd like to open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Jennifer.
I second.
Thank you. Actually, I should have said I accept the nomination.
Great. So we have Jennifer Baskin nominated for vice chair, with Commissioner Diepenbrock making the motion and Commissioner Thomas seconding. Commissioner Brosnan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Joshua, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Baskin, how do you vote?
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, you two.
Congratulations to our new chair and our new vice chair. And thank you, everyone, for a very efficient and fruitful election. So now moving on to D3, we're going to review the tennis court user feedback received during the tennis court daytime usage survey. We've been all very excited to hear about this. And I believe, Todd, will you be presenting the survey results? So thank you very much for joining us and for all the hard work you've done on the survey.
Yep, absolutely. And Nick, I think, is going to put it up on the screen for us.
Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
All right. Take it away, Todd.
All right. We'll start off with a lovely picture of a building that I supervise, the Arriaga Family Gymnasium. And then, okay, so a little bit of information here, and I'm not going to read things word for word, but we sent the tennis key holders, and only the tennis key holders. So it's important to note that the survey respondents are tennis key holders. It's not the general public, it's not non-residents, it's just those tennis key holders. And we asked them, oh, and actually, so maybe with a bunch of new commissioners here, maybe I should talk about how we gain access to the tennis courts. I think that'd probably be a good thing. So the City of Menlo Park City Council established, I believe it was 2008, it might have been 2010, a system where to play on the Menlo Park tennis courts, and those courts are at La Entrada, Nealon Park, Burgess Park, Willow, Oaks Park, and Kelly Park. In order to play on those courts, and they established a fee system the fee would be generated by purchasing a key. So we have a resident fee and a non-resident fee for the key in Menlo Park. Those keys are good annually, and they're good on the calendar year. We start to sell them in January. They prorate to half price starting July 1st, so just coming up in a week or so. And the cost of those keys, the cost of the using the key, the intention at that time was council, by council was so that maintenance could be performed on the courts, as well as regular upgrades to the court. And in fact, we just finished a Burgess tennis court resurfacing on June 14th, right on the first day of summer camp, so that the kids have a brand new court to play on. So that was the main intention behind the key system. So back to the survey. So we asked the users the following 5 questions that you see there, and then the responses you saw are included as an attachment in the staff report. So we can go to the next one, Nick. We'll do questions at the end, everyone. The survey responses, we got about 282, which is almost half, or a little bit over half, of our key holders that we usually sell annually, about 550. We usually sell between 500 and 600 on any given year. We've actually seen an increase in popularity in tennis during COVID, really all across the country. But definitely in Menlo Park, there's been more interest in tennis. And a lot of that was because of, you can play it, you can social distance, you can be apart from one another, and that was kind of the biggest reason. So we found out that Nealon's the busiest park by far, which we kind of knew internally as staff. And La Entrada and Kelly are the least busy, and that's the most west court and the most east court are the least busy. Also, La Entrada is a little less busy because it's not available during the school day. When La Entrada school is in, that's the only court that's impacted like that. We found that the time of the day is evenly distributed, with evenings being a little bit less busy. We had some people that responded that they wanted to add a couple things, and they talked about private lessons, too many of them, and the availability of courts for walk-up. And I can go through kind of the rules related to that as we get into questions of why things are set up the way they are. Go ahead, Nick. So folks also wanted to limit private instructors, certain locations or times a day. We're going to talk about that later. They wanted to resume posting the daily reservations on the courts, which we did do before COVID, and we haven't had the ability to do in COVID. So we will be taking that up again as COVID wanes. I won't say comes to an end, as COVID wanes. They wanted to implement a time limit when others are waiting, and a system for users to track this on site. There's a 1 hour time limit for people to play on the courts. And it's really the honor system at this point. We've talked about some low-tech solutions, including putting up chalkboards on the court and asking people to write down their start time when they arrive, when they start to play, something like that. And then we've talked about, they asked about identifying courts that can potentially be accessed without a key. And Sean and Nick and I have had some conversations about that. We can talk about that at the end as well. All right. And that is the end, actually. Sean, do you want to talk about real quick about the us implementing Kelly as that court? Do you want to?
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't I just maybe give a little bit of background if you don't mind, and then maybe we'll take some commissioner questions. I believe the staff report touched on this, but I just want to reiterate the reason why this survey was issued in the first place. And it was really intended to assess how busy the courts are. And rather than having to deploy people out to the courts with clickers or something to try to figure out what are the busy times of day and which are the least busy times of day at which locations, we thought, well, let's just ask the tennis users. They would know best, and that'll be fast and easy. And all of that, of course, backing up a little further, was to identify a location to add a pickleball court in town. So that's the purpose. Now, the free text responses that Todd just kind of summarized, at the end of most of the survey was just about days and times. It was just at the end of the survey, we said, well, here's a free text box. Any comments you might have, let's hear them. And so that's kind of where this feedback came from. Ideally, though, if we were to do a survey about, how people in Menlo Park in general would like to use the tennis courts, or what would they like to see, we would deploy a survey citywide and ask some more intentional questions about that. But we did get this good feedback here that we think there's a couple of solutions that are right here on the screen that might be able to be done quickly, pending, a more in-depth survey. So that's a little bit more of the background. And maybe we could stop there and take some clarifying questions so we can kind of dive into each of these possible quick fixes here.
Well, we like to ask for public comment first before, well, I guess we could have a clarifying question, anything on this, and then I do think we should ask for any public comment.
I have a question. May I?
Yes, is it a clarifying one or?
Yeah, I think so. Well, you could look at it that way. Was a question about the daily reservations. Was that a system that worked before COVID, before it was taken down?
Yeah, so let me, that's a very good question. So when the daily reservation system is, if you already have a key that you've purchased and you want to play in the courts, but let's say you want to play at a specific time against your friend or with your friends, let's say from 4 to 5, you can go ahead for a fee and make that reservation at that time that you want to play. And then we reserve only we reserve 50% of the courts for daily reservations. So that could be whether you and your friend wanted to play, it could be whether there was a private lesson by an instructor. We would reserve half of the courts. We talk a lot about Nelon Park because it's the busiest. At Nelon, there's 5 courts, and we only reserve 2 of the courts. So 40% at Nelon, excuse me, at any given time. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Peter, D, now that we have 2 Peters.
So couple of questions. So when you said prorate July 1st, Todd, so does that mean that after July 1st, you pay half price for a key or what?
That is correct. Starting July 1st, all the keys for both residents and non-residents are half price.
Okay, great.
Through the rest end of the year.
Okay, and then is there something specific? I mean, the key revenue is about roughly $25,000. does that go back into the tennis courts, or is there something specific that money is used for?
Correct. It's all in one. I don't want to get too into the sausage making. It's in one budget category. Revenue is in the same budget category as expenses, and it can go to things like buying new nets, buying awnings. It can go to paying for our staff to use the to brooms, and then it can also go to our staff costs to blow the courts with the air blower. It can also be used for bigger CIP type projects, like it wasn't a CIP project, but a larger project was the Burgess tennis court resurfacing. It could be used for that too. Yeah.
Now, are the courts, I know that you said they're blown, are they spray washed on a regular basis, or what?
They are power washed a couple times a year. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
And Peter, Joshua.
I may have missed this. What is the key fee both for residents and non-residents?
Good question, Peter. I didn't look that up before I came in. I want to say that it's either $64 or $65 for residents and double that for non-residents.
And the fees for the reservations?
Fee for reservation right now, I believe, is $17 for the hour.
That's correct.
Oh, very good. I get bonus points for that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've checked recently, so. At this time, I do want to check, Nick, do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair Baskin. If anyone would like to make a public comment on this item, please use that raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or if you're a dial-in attendee, press *9 on your phone now. Seeing no comment, back to you, Chair Baskin.
Thank you. So at this point, I think I just want to summarize and see if I'm clear on the next steps from your survey findings. Todd, is it for the commission to kind of discuss what you've presented to us and present some responses that staff could then take action on to better give our residents a better tennis experience? One, and then two, is there a next step? What is the next step from this? A survey to the greater community, or then that helps us define what changes we might make in terms of the discussion we had last week in terms of pickleball?
Do you want to jump in and give the bigger picture view, and then we can maybe talk about pickleball?
I'm sorry, I was looking up the key fees and I missed part of that question. I'm looking at the master fee schedule right now because I was getting the
no problem.
The fees for the keys. I'm sorry, I'm looking at them. I can report on those.
No problem. I think we just want to understand where we should aim our discussion, and if it's to take some of the feedback from the survey, digest it, and make recommendations, if any, that we feel we'd want staff to take. And would you be able to make changes, or this would have to then go to council, or just be changes that staff would make? And then secondly, how this is going to relate to what we decided in the previous meeting regarding pickleball at Menlo Park.
Right, so thank you for repeating. I apologize for not picking that up the first time around. Really, so the proposed adjustments to how the tennis courts operate, none of them involve changing fees or expending any funds. So in that regard, those are things that the city council, would need to approve. And also, any expenditures that kind of exceed a certain threshold would need to go to the city council, or in some cases, they would need to go to the city manager. So we're not really contemplating anything like that here. Now, these are more like ministerial kind of changes, and they're summarized kind of at the last page of the staff report, and they were on the slide about limiting maybe a private instruction or reservations to just one of the courts at Nelon Park, in part because the pickleball court that's recommended to go there is going to convert an existing tennis court. And so, that'll kind of lower the amount of tennis play availability there, but we can offset that to a large degree because most of the folks are like the walk-up players who are really concerned about time by just, making, instead of 2 courts reservable by instructors, only 1. And again, the city has other courts in other parks, plenty of options for instructors to reserve courts. And so there's that. Certainly posting the daily reservations is helpful because people can just, check, is it reserved or not? And there's no squabbling about it. It's right there in black and white. The time limit would be good. And then I think the big one we'd like some input on is about courts that potentially could be accessed without a key. And all of these changes we could just do ministerially. We wouldn't have to go to the city council, but we definitely wanted the Parks and Recreation Commission's feedback before we implement them.
Peter has a question.
Yeah, so one of the requests in the survey, one of the things that got mentioned was improve walk-up. What does that mean? What does that, I don't understand what that means.
Yeah, it was so I can summarize. In the free text comments, a number of them talked about, whenever I go just to drop in and play, there's never any courts available, or I wish they were more often available. There's times where I just wait and there's just no way to get a court because they're always reserved. There's always instruction going on.
Okay.
That's what that one means.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think a number of these are really important. I guess the one thing I'm asking is when it says limit reservations by private instructions to certain locations or times of day. So I understand, like, let's take Nelon, for example. Jim Hebner is the big long time private instruction that's done at Nelon Park. But say like Jen Baskin wants to get private instruction from Todd that does private instruction on the side. How, if I go and just reserve as a member, a citizen just coming in, but I'm doing private instruction, that actually that doesn't get caught, correct? It's more just the official coach, if they try to make a reservation, that gets limited. Is that correct?
So Jen, let me give you a little bit of an update that I let Nick on today, on today. So Jim Hebner, who, you're right, longtime coach out there, he has been a contracted partner with the city to provide tennis classes, and that is separate from a contract instructor, or excuse me, from a private reservation. We have Jim at Nelon Park. We also have Euro Tennis at Willow Park. They're providing contract instructed classes, mostly to kids, but there's a few adult classes as well. My update for you is that just yesterday afternoon, coming out of COVID, Jim is going to no longer provide classes. He's going to kind of semi-retire.
Oh.
So in terms of Nelon and all that we've got going on there right now, that's actually going to be a benefit to the situation at Nelon in the short term. How we fill that gap long term, we can work on. But the category is you're correct. When we have Jim Hebner as his contracted tennis class and he took up 2 courts, we would not reserve the court for anybody else, private lessons or anything like that. What we're talking about tonight with Nelon is limiting Nelon to tennis court number 1 and having that be the only court where an official reservation could be made. Now that reservation could be made by a private instructor. It could be made by you and your friend wanting to play at a certain time. Either one of those would qualify. If somebody reserved the court during those times, we would just limit it to just the 1 court. Now, we call them the rogue instructors that show up randomly, not just on our courts, but up and down the peninsula. my colleagues deal with all the time. That does not preclude them. I mean, they're not supposed to be doing it, but we have other mechanisms to try to deal with them as well.
Thanks for the clarification. I do think it's that is a key, the possible reduction of private instruction by Jim Huebner could really change the tennis experience there. I feel a little, and I don't know if other people have seen this there. I'm on the side that I filled out that survey as a key holder as well, that feel like every time I go up there, I can't play. I'm waiting or we can't play. But I do think that it would be worth seeing how it goes without him reserving as much, like how that frees up the courts. Because I do think that's a pretty big deal.
And overall, going from 2 reservable courts to 1 reservable court, we think is a good solution.
Yeah.
Right, again, and the
trust
intent
results.
there is that the pickleball court going in at Nelon, it's like it's a
reserve.
wash. It's
Yeah.
a wash. Like the tennis
Yeah.
players still have, they maybe even have a little bit more access for just drop-in play as a result of this move. So that was another piece of it, just to make sure that the pickleball, there's really no net impact. The net,
Right.
I said net, there's a pun there.
Yeah. No, thanks for clarifying. That actually sounds very reasonable. I see Aurora has her. Oh, Todd, do you want to clarify, and then we'll move on to
one additional point is we have researched and looks like we'll be purchasing a net that will go over between court 1 and court 2, so that if you're instructing on court 1 and you've got 100 tennis balls, they are no longer going to go on to court 2, which we heard that from people in the survey and in the past as well. So court 1 will kind of be walled off and be its own court now, as well as court 2, but that one will be open to the public. So that should help people wanting to play and not being afraid to play on court 2 if they see 100 tennis balls on court 1.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you.
Aurora.
So of all the 5 courts in Menlo Park, I think there were 5 or 6 of them, is there a particular reason why people prefer to have instruction at Nelon, where there seems to be the most activity? It's the most used court. Trying to understand why an option might not be to move instruction over to a less used court somewhere else in the city.
Well, if I'll field that. That's probably like the potential impact for like instructors. If there's only 1 court reservable at Nelon, there's certainly courts reservable at other parks that are pretty close by. I mean, Menlo Park's not geographically very big. So instructors shouldn't feel too displaced. They just might have to go over to Willow Oaks or one of the other courts. My understanding though, as far as Nelon, I mean, it's the centrally located park. It has a lot of amenities. It has a beautiful, universally accessible playground and fields and great parking, and the courts are nice. I just think, it's just because of all those factors, it's the busiest one.
So, but Sean, I think if I'm reading Aurora's question right, is it a possibility because Willows and Burgess are so seldom used, La Entrada, Aurora, not put words in your mouth, but are you suggesting why not just eliminate lessons at Nelon altogether and say, hey, you want to do a private lesson, go to Willows or Burgess? Is that a possibility?
Well, I'm not sure if that's exactly what I'm suggesting, but it would be a possible option depending on what the answer is to why it is that people specifically want to go to Nelon. I mean, if there are 5 courts at Nelon, we're looking at closing 1 off for pickleball. Is that right? And
yes, that's going to happen. Yes.
And then a second one would be dedicated solely to instruction, leaving 3 open to the public.
And reservations in general. So if you and I wanted to play, we could also reserve not just instruction.
Right, and I think that's key. Sorry, Todd, but I think that's key to not eliminating reservations altogether, because first of all, the instructors, they're users too, so we want to try to be fair there. And also sometimes just residents that aren't going instruction, they just I want to play at 11 a.m. I've only got an hour. If I make a reservation, then my friend and I can play, and so we'd want to give people that option as well, I think. And we can see how it goes. I mean, we can always change it again later, but that's why we maybe aren't going full tilt.
But back to Jennifer's original question, there is no way, I'm not talking about the rogue instructors, but there is no way to distinguish between Jennifer reserving to play with her friend and instructor Bob reserving to give a lesson. We can't distinguish between those two, correct?
No, they both fall under that same category of making a reservation at a specific time.
Right.
So we're saying this is the same fee whether you're an instructor or whether you're playing with your friend.
Right.
Just a little bit more context for Aurora. Nealon Court 1 would not only be available for instruction when there's no reservation, it would still be available to the public. And I hate to put a number on it, but I would say at least 50% of the day, maybe a little more even, there will not be instructors reserving that court. Some days it might be a little bit busier, but there'll be plenty of time on that court number 1 that still the general public can go out there and play. The other quick context, to add some context, at Burgess, there are 2 tennis courts, and our agreement with Menlo Swim and Sport, they have a tennis instructor out there that works for them, and they can reserve 50% of the court, so they reserve 1 court. So Burgess is impacted with Menlo Swim and Sport and their operation. And then also at Willow, we have our other contracted tennis partner, Euro Tennis Sport. They're out there doing classes as well. So when we say it's in terms of how busy they are, it really is Lon Trotta and Nealon Lon Trotta and Kelly are much less used. The other 3, the gap is much closer, even though Nealon is the busiest. The other 2 do have quite a bit of activity.
Well, I'd like to see if maybe we could take a couple of these items, or take these items kind of one by one, some of the staff recommendations, because I know you guys worked hard on this, and we'd like to take the feedback and sort of our thinking and what you're thinking together. The idea of limiting reservations by private instructors to certain locations or times of day. I don't love the idea that you can't reserve at any court for the main purpose of people work or have families, or sometimes someone gets a babysitter for just an hour to be able to play tennis with their friend. Like that is life. And I do think it's a little hard to take that away from any particular court. But to limit it to 1, especially given at Nealon, especially given we're doing the pickleball pilot program there, I think that makes sense, because we're going to readdress it once that gets going within 3 months, and we can see how that's working. And we can resurvey the tennis key holders then if needed. Or I'm sure complaints will come in if once that change has been made effect. If we kind of talk about that one, do any of the other commissioners have other ideas they want to do?
I do. Jennifer, like I said, given where I live, I literally drive by, and I make every effort, if it's not even in my way, to make sure it's in my way, to go by Nealon literally 4 to 6 times every single day. And to say that the weekend is, more busy, double busy, it's 10 times busier on the weekends at Nealon than during the weekdays, in my estimation. So, I would suggest you know, I don't know if it's a happy medium or something, but, you know, maybe weekends or maybe just certain times on the weekends, you know, again, would free up the walk up and play on the weekends is just a thought. It's just a thought.
So just so I hear you correctly, not allowing reservations on a weekend because weekends are very, very busy.
Exactly.
Yeah, weekends are very busy. I mean, I live across the street, and I like you and I must be on. Well, I definitely agree with you that the weekends are very busy, but I generally cannot walk up and play.
Yeah.
Anytime I try, and it's a little tough. And
I'm sorry.
so that's why the idea of, you know, possibly being able to make a reservation, you know, it is just able to. But I do agree, if is it, I don't know, how technically challenging would it be to say we can only reserve during the week versus not on sort of our reservation website? That's probably super high tech.
It's technically, I think it's feasible because you just set the system to only accept the reservations at certain times. I think it starts to get confusing for the public if the, you know, if the system's too complicated. Also, I think maybe what we as staff should do is we can actually just go into the reservation system and kind of see, you know, what is the traffic looking like on weekends as far as reservations, and determine, you know, would removing these help at all, or are there even that many? Don't know. So I would say we should take that step before we devise something that's not simple. Like, you know, just saying court one can be reserved and the others cannot is very, very simple, and people can get their minds around it and remember it. So that would be sort of, and let's see how it goes. And we'll look at the data in the system and kind of see if that would be helpful or not. So I think either way you slice it, Milan's going to be slammed on the weekends in the summer. It's a very popular park.
And I do think posting said reservations, which we talked about also in terms of posting, since we're going to be posting about the pickleball time slot, just so there's clarity and kumbaya amongst tennis and pickleball users, that we're going to post the hours on said court. I do think the idea of trying to post if there are daily reservations, or we know there's going to be something there on court, and it's really just court one, correct? Now, if we're going to put some signage up already there, maybe trying to post daily reservations, or even if it's a printout of the once a week, to try to give better communication and clarity amongst the users, might not be a terrible idea.
That is our goal coming out of COVID. We should be able to start doing that again real soon.
How do people feel about a time limit when others are well, I believe it is a published rule. It's a 1 hour, please limit play to 1 hour. So that is published just to inform the commission. But a system to track it, there is no system to track it. There's one clipboard on court one currently that Jim Heebner had used and may still use, depending on how long he's going to be working there still, to post the times that he teaches. But otherwise, we have no other sort of whiteboard or timer or anything of that sort there. I just don't know if pencils or pens or whiteboard markers get lost, and if that's going to be something that can maintain sort of a nice looking feel throughout the weather.
I think someone in the survey suggested something that's done in another city. I think they saw it, where there's a simple like rack to hang your racket on, and then it's just an order of whoever gets there first. So nothing super high tech, and very clear.
Henson, you might be able to go someplace, walk over to the park and watch your kids while you're waiting in line. That actually improves an experience quite a bit, as long as no one steals your racket. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a really lovely idea.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
possible. Easy to implement, and if it doesn't work, easy to take it back out too.
But Jennifer, you were also talking about the idea of posting like your start time somewhere, so people, when they walk up, they know, oh, these people have 20 minutes left or something like that.
That's what I thought this topic had. Dana brought up a great point just about the waiting, making a waiting experience better. And I do agree. I think that's a great idea. And yes, Peter, I was asking more about how to talk about what time, but I'm going to be honest, in practice, I walk to each court and just say, oh, hey, how are you doing? How much time do you think you have left?
Yeah.
And people have never been mean about saying, or people have asked me too. So I just don't know if writing it down and trying to maintain that sort of product on the court would be not as nice looking versus just when you walk up to the court asking how much longer people have to play.
Is the reason that this would not want to be done online because it would differentiate that people who reserve are paying for a reservation versus people who just walk up or are not paying for it and it's just a casual drop-in that you wouldn't want to reserve online?
Well, there's a fee for the reservations,
Right.
right? Whereas walk up is, just the price of the key or your playing partner's key, whoever has the key.
So in the comments, it seemed like there were a few that pointed out that there were some instructors, and some of the comments even specifically excluded Jim Hebner from these comments. That there were some instructors that were staying from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock every day, specifically, and felt that they were getting kicked off, by the instructors. So is there some consideration that could be made for how many consecutive hours? I don't know if a lesson is 1 hour, but how many consecutive hours an instructor can book a court?
Yeah, Todd, you could probably field this before you turn your mic on.
Yeah, that is something that we haven't done because we've always looked at it as it's a different person coming on to play with the instructor, but it's certainly something we could limit instructors to a number of hours. We could, and that would be done at the point of the reservation being made with the instructor.
Yeah, and I think combining that with posting the schedule daily on the court provides a lot more accountability too. So if they've only posted, if they're limited to 2 or 3 hours, or even if we don't limit it, it's like, well, they've reserved these hours, and once they exceed that, another player who walks up can see, says here, court's free, give someone else a turn. So that's where I think posting that, and that went away during COVID. And I think we saw a lot more, issues with kind of the rogue instructors. Not that they weren't already there, but it got worse was sort of what I'd heard. I think part because the schedule wasn't posted.
Peter, Joshua, I saw you have a hand raised as well.
Yes, I think implementing a time limit becomes difficult unless you're able to also enforce it in some way. So either there has to be an impromptu system of alerting somebody that's playing, because they could be playing and be oblivious to the fact that somebody else has just walked up and is waiting for a court. Somebody could just be standing there and it's like, who's going to give up their court next? And nobody's going to volunteer to give up their court. And I don't know if that's the actual situation that occurs. So some sort of an informal system that says, I'd like to be on this court next would be a good idea. So either you're going to ask somebody, or again, some sort of a way of indicating that you want to play on the court next would be a good way of doing it. But I don't see any way of enforcing, saying like, you can only stay here for an hour. It's great. Well, when is my hour up and who's waiting for my court? And so I don't think it really gets rid of the logjam of people waiting if nobody's going to give up a court.
I think the most elegant way so far for the visual,
Hang your racket.
I am waiting, visual, there's racket hanging.
Yeah.
I think those two can kind of go hands in hands.
Yeah. And I think it would be a thing to have this location somewhere in the court where, you put a racket and everybody that's playing on that court sees that there's a racket there and somebody's waiting for the court. some official place where you're basically all indicating that you'd like to have the court next.
Is there any way to incentivize the instruction to be moved to the courts that have the least amount of use? Like if somebody wanted to reserve, like I think Aurora mentioned the example of like a 3 to 9 instruction block, you know, obviously like at Kelly, that would not impact the use nearly as much. I guess, I mean, without getting rid of the reservation completely, which we all said we don't want to do, I'm not sure exactly how to incentivize it. Like unless we were going to talk about maybe opening Kelly or a different location to have no key fee. So then that would be like, not only is there no reservation fee, but then you don't even need to pay for the key. Maybe that would incentivize instruction to move there. I don't really know, but it sounds like that would make a huge difference for the experience at Neon.
Exactly what I was going to suggest, Dana. Exactly. They say Lawn Trot has never used Kelly Park. Exactly. Make it so you don't need a key to get on there. And then, yeah, maybe that disperses the people. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that was one of the bullet points, but I wasn't, I know we haven't gotten to it yet, but.
Yeah.
I very much agree with you. I think that's a great incentive. So if we can look at the lowest 2 usage ones, eliminate, sorry, I'm coughing so much, eliminate the key need there. And then possibly maybe to incentivize, we could pilot this, incentivize instruction to be done at those other courts if the possible waiving of a reservation fee or allowing, you know, back-to-back reservations that may move some people and distribute usage. Can we look at that sort of fee waiver as incentive?
I mean, we certainly, the city manager has the authority to waive a fee or not collect a fee, but without even council approval. So again, that's kind of a ministerial thing. It's only increasing or creating fees that would need city council approval. And the city council has mentioned a desire to just ensure like inclusion,
Equity.
accessibility, equity in everything. And, you know, fees are certainly something that can make things less inclusive. So identifying courts where there is no fee would kind of align with that. I think we'd have to keep an eye on it, because then if it's just filled with instruction all the time, then that maybe defeats the purpose of the access for residents. But I think it's worth a try, especially now we have some data from the tennis users that those 2 parks in particular, you know, that they're pretty low use. We kind of knew that already, but that'd be a good place to pilot it. And again, yeah, it's kind of encourage instructors, hey, there's plenty of court time over there and you don't even have to pay for it.
Do we have a rough idea of what the yearly revenue is from reservations?
I kind of throw to Todd on that. He probably has a ballpark figure.
Ballpark figure $5,000, maybe
Okay.
a little less. Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I'll say though, about just in the short term, Lawn Trotta is out of commission for the summer, the tennis courts, because of construction at the Lawn Trotta school. So they won't come back online until August. So as if we're piloting things and getting them up and running, it might just have to be Kelly to start, or we have to coordinate the time with Lawn Trotta, but just an FYI.
Okay. And what's the 3rd least used park then? Tennis court.
I really couldn't differentiate between Willow and Burgess. They're pretty close.
They're pretty close.
Yeah, they're
Willow
within a
has 4
percentage
courts
point.
Yeah, Willow has 4 courts and Burgess has 2. But it's hard to say which is, I mean, you would think theoretically then maybe Willow has a little bit more availability with 4 courts, but hard to say.
Parking is a problem at Willows, where Burgess, it's much more accessible, I think. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I think we've seen a lot of, we do have a lot of sort of great ideas and alignment here. I'd like to kind of go ahead and give the staff some recommendations from our commission on, you know, what to do to improve the tennis user experience. So I'll put forth some ideas here in support of them, and kind of anyone, please feel free to add or say whether really maybe whether they don't support something or they want to add more. I do agree with limiting the court reservations at Elon to just one court, so that given that Jim Hebner is probably reducing his reservations, and that we're going to have the pickleball program. So I think that will create a much better experience. The posting of the daily reservations, I love that idea. And adding on to and adding Dana's idea, exploring the hanging of the racket that's done to really define, hey, we're waiting and these are reserved. I think the third bullet point, unless someone has a brilliant idea about it, I think, again, we make sure we have it posted. Maybe there could be some signage, which there may be out there. Play is limited to 1 hour when people are waiting. That would be great. But again,
signage is out there already.
There are. Oh, okay. Because I think the whiteboard getting wet or any sort of papers is just gonna look sloppy when we have these many gorgeous courts around town. And so I don't really have an idea there other than just the racket hanging for identifying waiting. And then the courts that can be accessed without a key. I love the idea of trying that out at Kelly. And definitely La Entrada when it's up and running. Let's get these courts used. We have these courts we're maintaining and they're great. Let's incentivize people to go over there and eliminate the reservation fee there. Let's try to get some people over there. Does anyone want to comment or add or?
I second all of those.
I liked all those suggestions as well.
Great. Does that give you some meat to kind of go back with and see how this progresses?
Yes, it does. We've been, I know Nick is taking notes there, so we can go through that all, but definitely, these are all good suggestions.
You guys want to take a vote on that series of motions and seconding there? I can restate it if you want.
Thank you.
So the motion is to recommend limiting reservations by private instructors at Nelon Park to one court, or limiting reservations by private instructors or anyone at Nelon Park to court number 1, to resume posting the daily reservation schedule on the courts that are reserved or reservable, to implement a racket queuing system for those who are waiting to use a court, and to pilot a no key access and no reservations system, or no fee for reservations at Kelly Park. Does that capture it?
That captures it, and Encinal and La Entrada when available.
All right. La Entrada when available.
Did he also say put the tennis holder rack up?
He did.
Okay.
During the reservation fees.
Okay.
So can I have someone make a motion to move forward with those? Yes, with those recommendations said so eloquently by Nick.
Eloquently.
Sure, I'll put forth that motion.
Thank you, David. And do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you, Peter. And Nick, I'll allow you to take a vote.
Great. Commissioner Brosnan, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Commissioner Joshua, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Payne, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Baskin, how do you vote?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we have waited with bated breath for the department updates. We have the staff report here, and maybe Sean, you can go over some of the highlights there and then respond to Peter's question about in-person meetings, if you have any color on that.
Yes.
So sorry, but this is not the time that we were going to discuss some pickleball issues. We're going to do that later or something, or what?
Were there comments about pickleball?
Yeah, Todd, you were saying we were going to discuss some pickleball issues.
Yeah, staff has discussed what the commission, I want to use the right word, recommended last month. And one of the concerns that we had, and probably the only real concern, was the issue of the pickleball being a priority on the court, as opposed to giving pickleball and tennis each as an exclusive time. And so staff is going with the idea that pickleball would be available from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., or we could call it sunrise. And then tennis would be available from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. We think that there is potential for strife with the whole priority system, where either could be on the court during the day.
Okay, so just to be clear, Todd, if there's nobody on the court at 6 p.m. and pickleball players show up and start playing, and then a tennis player show up and want to play tennis at 6:15, and the other 4 courts are free, do the pickleball players have to get off court number 5?
No, that makes no sense. The tennis players just go to one of the available courts.
Well, it is the better court, Sean. I mean, it is the isolated court. That would be their point, but okay.
But I still think the normal rules, court rules would apply, that pickleball players get their hour play there. Right? So
yeah, because other courts are available.
No, but Jennifer, you're saying something different. I'm saying pickleball players can play from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. if the other tennis courts are available for tennis players to play. That's the question.
Okay.
And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. I'm totally comfortable saying if we had to adjudicate that, we would just say there's other courts available.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Yes, of course.
Yeah. But you know, at the same time, you know, that's the only court that is striped for pickleball. So I think that would be sort of the determining factor. Now, if all the other tennis courts are full, like, okay, well, in the evenings, tennis does have priority.
Correct. Got it.
Yeah, but that's the only court that has pickleball striping. And so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Great.
Excellent.
So having decided that, is there any kind of timeline now, Todd? Do we know when this is going to get done?
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, and with some of the work that we need to do with the striping, which we can talk about offline with you.
Yeah.
We can communicate about that, and some of the signage that we need to get up. And there'll be an agreement process that we have to create with the vendor who does the striping. We think that 4 weeks is reasonable to get it up and running.
Okay.
And so, Commissioner Diepenbrock, I'll reach out to you. I can reach out to you tomorrow to talk about the netting and the vendors.
Perfect. Great.
Yes. To go through our process. Yes,
and you know, hey, now that the COVID restrictions are quite a bit less and gatherings are no longer like really prohibited, maybe we could do a little ribbon cutting or something kind of nice to
That'd be awesome.
Open the court.
Great. I think that'd be great. And it's a very popular and social activity. I think some of the feedback, and I do want to say this, just given the new commissioners here, some of the feedback coming out of this time when we, haven't been as activated. We went through the 6-month period where not just our commission, many commissions weren't able to do work. To have something a little celebratory like that would be excellent and really hopeful in spirits and invigorating for the community.
One other thing a community member said, and I'm kind of torn on it, I thought it was a kind of interesting point, is if I'm a tennis player and I pay $65 and I get a key, I have, I don't know, whatever it is, 11 or 15 tennis courts I can use. And if I'm a pickleball player, I have 4 courts I can use and I'm still paying $65. I don't know if that's a fair point, or I just thought I'd throw it out there.
I think it's a fair point that warrants some analysis as we go forward with pickleball. I think we do at some point in the upcoming year need to do a citywide survey about tennis, about pickleball, and actually about a number of recreation activities in town, because we are looking ahead to the new Menlo Park community campus, which, you know, that whole campus, including Kelly Park, has almost every amenity that we offer in one place, and we want to have some feedback from the community in preparation for opening that facility. So the time is right to do that analysis, and fees are a part of that. Now, fees are set by the city council in the master fee schedule, so we kind of have to do all that legwork in order to bring any adjustments to the council. So I think the point's well taken, Peter, and we'll do that analysis in the year ahead.
Okay.
Great. So back to you, Madam Chair, but I think we were moving to the next item.
Yes, we're moving to the department updates. If you want to just give us the highlights, because I know staff has worked hard to prepare a report, so we're able to.
Yeah, so just to summarize what's in the written staff report, the highlights are the city council last night met to adopt the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. They didn't adopt it last night because one council member was absent, so they want to make sure they're all there. So they're going to adopt the budget on Monday. But long story short there, the budget proposal from our department looks like the council is generally in favor of it, and it restores quite a bit of capacity to kind of get us closer to pre-pandemic levels in preparation for opening the recreation centers, gym, and other facilities over the course of the year. So Monday's the big night. We think we'll be in good shape there. There was a question about reopening plans. The city council and this commission, actually in the library commission for a few months there, kind of chewed over the sequencing, in addition to the pandemic, making it challenging to reopen facilities. We also had the economic downturn, and our budget was reduced quite a bit in the past 2 fiscal years. And so that's another factor that prevents us from just opening all the facilities and turning all the lights on all at once. You know, we have to kind of phase it in. And in particular, if we have staff that we are going to add back, we have to recruit them, we have to train them, we have to onboard. So it takes a little time. So there was a 4-phase plan that the city council and the commission worked on. I will share my screen because it's really easy to get to at menlopark.org/reopening. Right there. And it's summarized here in 4 phases. Starting in July, we're already taking reservations for picnic areas. The libraries are opening in a couple of weeks on July 6th. The senior center is being displaced by the construction of the new community campus in Bellhaven. So we're opening the Arriaga Center for the seniors first on July 12th, because that's where their senior center is going to operate. Starting in August, indoor classes and programs for children, youth, people with special needs. So this would be the recreation center and the gym opening up with a focus first on, programs for kids during the summer and people with special needs. Special event permits also in the summer, just in time for National Night Out. So for folks, want to have a block party, want to close off the street, they can actually apply for a permit now for National Night Out and other events. Then in September, and these are all kind of subject to a little change as we go forward, but roughly this time frame, the recreation centers, gyms that are already open, more of like the adult population, pretty much just back to full capacity by September. And then the question Commissioner Diepenbrock asked is about indoor meetings of advisory bodies like the commission and the city council, and that's currently targeted in September. In part because those are gathering spaces, so we want to be careful. Sometimes city council chambers that can accommodate more than 100 people. Also, there's been a strong desire by members of the public to continue to have a Zoom option. So even though the meeting's in person, some way for people to still Zoom in, make their comment on Zoom, participate that way. And so that requires a little extra preparation for like the technology, the buildings themselves. How is that going to work? It needs to work right. So people, you know, if they're going to make a public comment, we want to make sure the microphone and everything works so that they can record it. And then again, the gymnasium, City Hall, gymnastics also is a program that requires a little extra analysis to get restarted. The City Council has indicated they want that to happen. We're targeting November. And then by the end of the year, we're basically back to pretty much everything else, including renting the recreation facilities for like private parties and whatnot. We kind of put that at the tail end because we don't have a lot of control, you know, over, you know, we vet people who rent them, but they basically just rent them. And these are like parties and weddings and stuff like that. So that's kind of the tail end. So that's the summary of the reopening plan. And it's again at menlopark.org/reopening. And it is subject to change, but that's kind of where we are right now with it. And the other updates are there. I'm happy to answer any questions about them, but I think those were the big ones to call out.
Thank you very much for that. Does anyone have any questions on reopening plans or anything else for the department?
So will the tree lighting be the first, you know, big event that comes back?
I think the pickleball grand opening will be a big event.
And maybe there'll still be some, we maybe can parade possibly during Halloween. That was always a sweet thing if possible. It might be a little large, but.
I have a feeling that by Halloween we'll be doing something. We might not do the full-blown Halloween hoopla, but I think we'll be doing something. And then certainly after National Night Out, you know, I think we'll see that there'll be an appetite to make sure we've got some special events for the community. The tree lighting is a definite thing. I think where we're at right now, though, is it takes months to plan like the really big brouhaha, and so we would need to like be starting now. So we probably won't be able to really dig in on that until we're able to staff up in a couple 3 months. So the events themselves might be a little bit scaled back from past years, but we're planning to have them.
Great.
Well, make sure I'm still unmuted. So next under items is commissioner reports, and I am up this month. So really quick, I do want to report on one of my most favorite things during my time as a Parks and Recreation Commissioner was being able to rename a Menlo Park that was on Marketplace to Carl E. Clark Park. And it was absolutely one of the best meetings we had, one of the most well-attended by our community, and a meeting where you just heard members of the community feel so proud about a native Menlo Park individual, a war hero, and just something special that we were able to do for the community. And on Juneteenth, on Saturday, the city unveiled the storyboard about Mr. Clark. And in Menlo covered it, members of city council, the mayor was there, state assembly member was there, staff was there. I met Aurora there, so she got to see involvement. The new police chief was there. I think that's also something. We just saw the community come together, all parts of Menlo Park, and staff and community members, and even advocacy groups that were interested. So it was a really, really nice and meaningful unveiling. And I brought my kids. So any of these, just to note, any of these events that go around town, you can come casually. You know, I know Mayor Combs was in a suit, but we were there in, you know, play clothes, and you feel welcome, and it's just was a really, really nice event. So applaud the city on what they did there, and just a great learning experience for people of all ages, and a great way to meet other people. And there was even some nice refreshments too, which we always do nicely at our events. So something to take note of at that pickleball grand opening. And again, yeah, I think it's a great idea for us to try to celebrate those wins and those achievements that we've done as a commission or as a city, because it really highlights the work we've done. One of our past commissioners, Sarah Staley-Schenk, her expertise was in PR and communications. And it's a loss that we don't have her, because she was always very mindful of how to get what the city is doing out there to the community, because it's very uplifting, the work we do or what we have as this in the city. And so I think we're going to be able to carry it on by, just being very open and communicative of what's going on. So anyway, that's all from me. And I do believe I accidentally skipped the Parks and Recreation Commission agenda calendar. So I will just pull that up. It is, sorry, I went out of order there. If you can see for the July meeting, we had previously had a parks tour scheduled there, but some updates that we saw that were more timely, and I think makes quite a bit more sense since they were timely and would be ready for July, that we could kind of handle those meatier things, and that a parks tour, which is fun and great for our new commissioners to see, something we haven't done in a couple years, so we'd love to do, but that could be pushed back. So we'll have the Bedwell Bayfront Park Master Plan update, which is a big project, long time project, the aquatics programming, which is always something we like to hear about, and public engagement on the MPCC programming. So those are big pieces that will take up quite a bit of the time for the next meeting. And just below, we still have some unscheduled future items, and as these come, as these are more prepared for us, we will then add them to the calendar. Are there any questions or additions or edits anyone has on the calendar?
Can I just clarify, maybe you already know this, the new commissioners, but MPCC is our acronym for the new Menlo Park Community Campus Facility.
Thank you for that.
Jennifer, I can't remember, but did we have written down somewhere the disc golf conversation? I thought we put it on few unscheduled future items, or I thought we put it somewhere, but I can't.
We did bring that up actually at the last agenda planning meeting, and I forgot where we were going to put that under. Maybe we didn't add it as a separate piece.
I think we were going to discuss it during the Bedwell Bayfront Park Master Plan update, because I think there was some discussion of disc golf when that master plan was put together. So we thought we'd cover it then.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you. No, and thanks for reminding us, Peter, because it absolutely was discussed at the agenda planning, and now I had forgotten where we put it.
Yeah.
I might, Chair Baskin, the only other thing, something that came up at this meeting earlier was a citywide survey about recreation program services and fees. Maybe we want to stick that in the parking lot, just so that we don't lose sight of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll put that in unscheduled future items, and then we can address, since if anything changes leading in for the sort of meaty topics we have going into July, we can reorganize, but I think we felt July was pretty heavy already. Great. Well, with that, it is
one last thing. I just think that it's really important that we clarify this, and that is because Jennifer, you brought up an interesting point. because this pickleball thing could be up and running before our next meeting. So just, we need to have a clear agreement that if it's 6:30 at night and pickleball players are on the court and the other 4 courts are full and tennis players come, pickleball players don't get an hour. They know if they're showing up at a non-priority time that tennis players have priority and they need to get off the court immediately. Are we clear on that? Do we agree on that or what?
Yeah, that was sort of what I took away from the conversation. And so, you know, when we create the signage at the site, because I think typically people will say, hey, what does the sign say? You know, we'll make sure that that's clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And we can like work with you offline on that language, Peter, since you kind of have a real sense of like the pickleball community, what's going to be clear.
What can happen. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And any other additions before we adjourn? Well, thank you and welcome again, new commissioners. Congratulations, Aurora, on new chair. And it is now 8:04 p.m. and meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a
Good
good
night.
everyone.
Thanks. Thanks.